Okay, so let's continue with our run function. So how to run our model. So this is very important. This is also an interesting part, and I hope you learn a lot of things from this run function. So I'm just gonna def run function. The run function takes in an argument called function arguments, which is provided by TFX. So when we run our function, TFX will pass a run a function argument to this function. It's of type function argument, right? And this function returns nothing. So we just say it returns nothing. So I'm just gonna write. I'm just gonna import this function argument thing at the top. So if my memory serves me correctly, so I think it's a TFX component also. So from TFX dot components dot trainer, since we are using trainer dot function, yes, function argument utilities. So we say import function arguments, yes, and then we go back to our function argument. So um, let's see. So what do I want to run in this function argument? So the first thing I want to define is in this function argument is a callback. A callback. So I want to define a callback for Tensorboard. So what is Tensorboard? So let's go back let's go to the documentation. So TensorBoard is TensorFlow's visualization kit. So TensorBoard provides a visualization and tooling needed for machine learning experimentation. So for TensorBoard, you can track and visualize metrics such as loss and accuracy. So when we were specifying our model, we said something like metrics, and we said binary accuracy. We can track that metric in TensorBoard. We can visualize model graph. We can view histograms, project embeddings to a lower dimensional space, display text images, so much more. So TensorBoard is good for visualizing your metrics and stuff. So we are going to use TensorBoard in our work. So let's go back to here. So we have to define TensorBoard as a callback. So I say TensorBoard callback, and then we say tf.keras.callbacks dot TensorBoard. Let me run this here and see if that is the right. Yes. So that's the correct syntax. So tf.keras.callbacks, and then yeah, what is my log directory? So where am I going to put all my TensorBoard logs? So that will be provided by, so I'll say function arguments dot model run directory, and then update frequency. So how often do I want to update my TensorBoard logs? So after every batch of training, so after every batch. So that's just the syntax you need for TensorBoard. The other callback we also need to consider is something called early stopping. So when you're training your model, when do you know, how do you stop? Do you just train for 1,000 epochs and then stop at 1,000 epochs? What if your model is overfitting the data? So if you don't know what overfitting is and model bias and variance is, then I suggest that you take a machine learning course. And yeah, just go to Andrew Ng's course and then just go through all his YouTube videos and learn something about machine learning and what variance and bias is. So, so just to explain briefly, your model can overfit on your training data, which means that the model can start learning things that are not parameters that are not important. So it's something like learning the training data so much that if you put your model in production, it doesn't perform well. So, for example, if you're training your model and you are training with training data and you are validating with validating data, and your training data is 100% and your validation data is 70% accuracy, it means that you have um, some sort of overfitting going on because training and validation accuracy should be quite close. So when your model is training and it gets to a point where your validation accuracy is not increasing anymore, you can say I want to stop training. So that is early stopping. So early stopping. So we are going to use early stopping to check when we have to stop training. So callbacks, right? Dot early stopping. So early stopping. As you can see, we haven't checked any of our code. So for example, so the first time you run it, obviously there's going to be some errors that we might have to fix. So what are we monitoring? We are monitoring validation accuracy. So I want to say validation accuracy, right? What is the mode? We want the maximum, right? So we want the maximum validation accuracy. So verbose is should you there are a lot of logs that will be printed when it's training. So you can check the argument 0, 1 and 2. 2 doesn't print anything. 0 prints everything and then 1 prints part of it if I'm correct. If I think that's what the document she says. So patience. So patience is if after every so how many epochs do we stop training? So for example, if after 5 epochs I don't see any change or any increase in validation accuracy, then I can stop training. So we are going to use the value of 10. Right. Now there is also another callback that we have to use. So model checkpoint. So model checkpoint is used usually in conjunction with early stopping. So um, whenever there is an increase in um, the validation accuracy, early model checkpoint would then what save the model, right? So we can just start training from some checkpoints, right? Which is good to use for your work. So if your computer crashes, you don't need to start training from some you're training your whole model again, right? So what is our model checkpoint? Um, so where are we saving it? So we say 7 model directory. We want to save it in some 7 model directory that will be provided by TFX. What are we monitoring? We are monitoring val binary accuracy, right? What is our mode? Max, right? What is our verbosity? So verbosity is 1, right? So yeah, and then there's a last argument that I will use, which is called save best only. So we just want to save the best model, right? And I'll name this to be true. Okay, so what else do we have to do? Oh, okay, now we are running our function, but we don't have data, right? So we have to create batches of data. And what do we have to use? We have to use our input function that we already defined here to create our batches of data. So now you can see how everything is tying up nicely. So we have to use our input function here. So we have to create our train set, right? and then we call our input function, and then the train set takes, so the function argument knows where our train files are automatically, and then we specify our TF transform output. But first we need to load the output transformation. So load the output, loads the transform output, right? So we have TF transform output, right? And then we have TFT dot I think TFT transform output, and then this is function arguments dot transform graph path, right? So this just load our transformation graph into our training set, right? And then we want to create 10 batches. So we have data that is good for 10 epochs, right? And then validation set, and then it's gonna be the same thing, but then here is gonna be eval, right? So that's it. And then the next thing is we will build the model. So we have model, we equal to model builder. Oh, yeah. All right. And then after that, we train the model. So to train the model, what do we have to do? We have to say model.fit, model.fit x. Our input should be equal to our train set, validation data equal to val set, and then we have callbacks, which is equal to Tensorboard callback, and then our early stopping, and then our model checkpoint, and then we specify our epochs. Let me just make it 100, right? All right, and then yeah, so this is our model now. Yeah, so this will be so this is just our model, and then yeah, so I would continue with our last function in our last, so in the last video, for or maybe last but one, I will just continue with our last function. So see you in the next video.